Hey everybody, what's up, man? Hold the truth hostage, where the truth was so important we wouldn't negotiate with lies. Now, I spoke to the homie, man. Shout out to the homie Gold Pillar. I was chopping it up with him, and we bounced some ideas and helped me flesh out this idea a little more. You know what I'm saying? And the idea I have, of this stream, this video, is that, man, I think what's happened to a lot of men in the West, in the country, is I think a lot of men are failing forward. Let me repeat that. I think a lot of men are failing forward. Now, what do I mean by this? Well, I said this in a live stream, my previous live stream, that, I was gonna share something big, an idea that hit me. And what hit me is that, man, I think a lot of us failed high school. For example, let's use high school. I think we failed purposely, and we did a lot less effort purposely. And you see all the grades, for example, one big thing the news likes to bring up is that, men are failing. Men are failing on education. The news likes to bring that up all the time. Oh, men are failing, on education and studies. But what they don't bring up is that it's not really failing. A lot of males in school are adapting, And check this out. As I was thinking about it, I was like, man, I remember I was in high school. There was some classes where I was like, man, all I need is a C, All I need is a C. I don't care about this class, and just go class clowning, joking, doing what I do. You know what I'm saying? I didn't care, And what I realized is a lot of males' grades are low because a lot of them are realizing that, your high school grades do not affect the job you're getting. You get what I'm saying? As in, let's say you're an A+ student, you're averaging a 3.0, 4.0 in high school. When you apply for a job in high school, how does that help you? You know what I'm saying? You know what I mean? They're not gonna interview you and say, well, he's averaging a 3.0 or 4.0. We gotta speed track him to be a manager or supervisor. You know what I mean? Think about it. You're averaging, and I was an honor roll. I made it an honor roll in 6th grade and all that, I made honor rolls. But when you apply for a job, bro, they don't look at your grades in high school and say, oh man, he's averaging a 3.0. He's averaging a 4.0. You know what I'm saying? Give him a better position. You know what I'm saying? They don't do that, man. You know what I'm saying? They don't give you a better position at a job because your grades are good in high school, And I think what's happening, especially another thing is that I said this years ago, is that the schools do not talk to the students about fast tracking them. You know what I'm saying? They don't talk to you from day one. Are you looking to skip a grade? They don't do that. You know what I'm saying? They don't do that and say, are your kids looking to skip grades? And we know why they do that. They don't bring that up because they'd lose money. Imagine if as soon as your kid's about to start high school, you know what I'm saying, they do a placement test. They do a test to determine if your kids, or when you were a kid, whether you start off as a freshman or you start off at like a junior or senior because of your grades were just so high, They don't do that. You know what I'm saying? They don't do that. They don't do no placement to see if you could skip a grade. They don't do that, you know? They would lose them a lot of money. Just imagine if dudes that could just skip school, you know what I'm saying? Skip those 4 years of high school, you know? So what's happening, and they don't want to bring this up, they just want to put the narrative, oh, the boys are failing school. Another reason is this, is that if a lot of men from high school are saying, I'm not going to college, you know what I'm saying? I'm not going to college at all, you know? That got nothing to do with me, you know? I'm going to trade school or so on, you know? What you think happens? They're not gonna really care about their grades in high school, because think about it, in high school, they tell you, I mean, I think if you average a D to a C, you could graduate, right? You average a D to a C, you could graduate. So it becomes, why even average more than that? Why even have higher grades than a C anyway? Why even do that? You know what I'm saying? When you gonna graduate anyway, like that. Now, if you're aiming to go to schools and, you know, you're going to college and all that, yeah, you're gonna try to perform a lot better. You know what I'm saying? Help your GPA, get you access to a better college. You know what I'm saying? But if your goal isn't to go to college after high school, it's to go to trade school or get a CDL, whatever. You know what I'm saying? What are you gonna need your grades for to be above a C plus or a C? What are you gonna need that for? You know? And I think what they don't want to admit, and you know, we've been there since like the 2010s, they've been saying, men are falling behind. Men are falling behind. You know what I'm saying? Even though the women will get all these degrees and can't, you know, college is known, you get a degree. I'm on examples, you get a degree and you can't find work within that degree. You know what I'm saying? But they'll say men are falling behind because they know that the men have figured it out, that they don't see a point in even going to college anymore. So why are they even gonna try beyond getting like a C? You know what I'm saying? All you need is a passing grade to graduate, right? That's all you need. And then, like I said, another to circle back is that your grades in school do not affect you when you go get a job. I remember I applied for Toys R Us, back in 06, 07. They didn't ask me, well, what was your grade point average in high school? You know what I'm saying? Or even, they didn't care about that, man. They were hiring me to be seasonal or I could keep my permanent position. You know what I'm saying? They didn't care. And then when I worked at some other spots, Friendlies, diners, and, other spots, they didn't ask me about my high school education. And another problem this presents is that it's affecting a lot of labor locations, a lot of spots where they give people jobs. It's affecting them a lot. Is that since you go to high school and they don't teach you about being a manager, like there's no class for you to be a manager. You get what I'm saying? There's no class for you to be a manager. There's no class for you to be a team leader. Basically, in high school, they're not teaching you any way to benefit to that job you're gonna start with. So if you start at retail, if you start at a diner or whatever, you're not getting taught how to be a manager. You know what I'm saying? And what's happening right now, you see a massive shortage of people to hire. You see a massive shortage because a lot of the dudes going to high school and people going to school to begin with, they're not being taught or trained. You know what I'm saying? They're not being taught or trained in any way to go out to the job force and actually pursue a bigger position, like being a manager, being a team leader, and so on. It's not put in you from high school to see a future in that or a higher position. You just go there if you get a job at high school. I'm just gonna work here, get the bread, get the bread and get out. You know what I'm saying? That's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna work here at this restaurant, this diner, and what happens is, since these restaurants and diners are just hiring people from high school where those kids aren't being taught anything to pursue any further level of careers in that place, being a manager, being a, branch manager or nothing. They're not being taught anything. A lot of those kids and people working are like, man, this is just a place to work until I go to college or till I go to trade school. There's no future in it. You remember that talk. Like when I applied for Toys R Us, I ain't think about being a, regional manager or none of that. It was just a job, bro. You know what I'm saying? It's just a job to work in the summer or whatever, I didn't see no long-term planning or value with that. You get what I'm saying? So you go to high school, they don't teach you anything to benefit the jobs long-term. You know what I'm saying? And it's showing. They've been doing this for over 4-5 decades, They don't teach you anything outside of the school. They don't teach you how to manage banking, how to manage your money. They don't teach you nothing. Yes, you could learn this on your own. Yeah, we know. You know what I'm saying? I know you could learn it on your own. But if you're coming fresh out of high school and all that, you know what I'm saying? You're like, I didn't learn it, whatever. I'll just keep moving, And what this does is it creates a shortage of people that will work at a place for the long term, for the long haul. Like you remember working at retail, you'd see the manager and be like, all right, that's the manager. You know what I'm saying? You didn't fully think about, well, let me see what it's gonna take. I come here with a level of education and knowledge to become the next manager. You know what I'm saying? You didn't come with that, And I think a lot of men realizing that, I'm stuck here for the next 4 years. A lot of dudes and will be failing forward. Where, it's not really failing forward, but, it just sounds better. You know what I'm saying? It sounds better. Failing forward. You know what I mean? It sounds better. It's got a hit to it, But a lot of guys will be getting lower grades, and you could see it where the grades, point averages of the boys is a lot lower because they're realizing, bro, I'm just going to be here for the next 4 years. You know what I'm saying? I'm going to be here for the next 4 years, man. I don't need to, do anything else if I'm just going to be stuck here for the next 4 years. Now, as you've seen with the news, they keep saying men are failing because they don't want to admit that the men are failing. The men are failing forward. The men have realized that, bro, all you need is a C, That's all you need, bro. You be a C student. And another thing is, if you're going to community college, if you're going to go to community for 2 years, then jump from community to a more private college, why do you need that much high grades anyway if you're going to community college? You know what I'm saying? What's the point in, you know what I mean? So it becomes, man, what's the point? You know what I'm saying? What's the point of it when you're not gonna be doing that much anyway? You get what I'm saying? What's the point of it to get anything more than a C+ to graduate? Now, another thing that's come that a lot of people won't see coming is that I think a lot more due to AI, due to the arrival of AI technology, that a lot of high school students now will, as I said, fail forward. You know what I'm saying? Truly fail forward and succeed at a crazy rate, because if for example, you gotta go to this, you're going to school for the next 4 years. You know what I'm saying? 4 years you're going there. You know what I'm saying? That's 4 years with AI that can build websites, that has all the information you need to learn and study. You could start businesses, you can create things right then and there with AI. Damn, I was barbecuing, man. I was barbecuing how hot it is unexpectedly. But what's happening is that AI, and I'd say this, if you got a child, if you got a kid and they're in high school, you have to introduce them, even before they're in high school, you need to introduce them to AI ASAP. You know what I'm saying? You gotta introduce them to AI use cases as soon as possible while they're in high school or below. Because one thing AI is doing that a lot of these corporations don't see coming, and don't see that AI is reversing something that major corporations, and I touched on this multiple streams ago. I can't pinpoint you to what stream. You know, YouTube is deleting my streams, and I got some trolls coming back. You know what I'm saying? One of them used to face rape men has come back to strike my channel. You know what I'm saying? So, you know, we know what it is, you know, so, but what's happened is why AI will actually create a renaissance and actually change everything. You know what I'm saying? Change everything is that a lot of these corporations removed, for example, a lot of corporations removed from schools, they remove art programs, they remove any programs that taught kids how to draw, how to illustrate, how to paint, how to create music, and so on, so they could control it. You know, for example, schools used to teach, you know, knitting, sewing, and home improvement and trade school right in the high schools or even before then. You know what I'm saying? And a lot of these corporations ripped that out the schools and removed them because it was a threat to them. Think about it. Think about Tommy Hilfiger. Think about Dior and all these brands, right? They're owned by old people, man. They're owned by people that are 40, 50 plus, and their main employees are people that are grown adults, 18 and above. You know what I'm saying? It doesn't benefit them. It's very dangerous to their brand if some kid up in high school could start their own clothing line, right? Because all these older people working for Dior and all these Tommy Hilfigers and all these brands, they're adults. They're adults. And they're adults creating brands where they're trying to shape and mold how the teenagers and younger will dress, right? Will dress in the fashion and so on, right? You know what I'm saying? Adults. But back in the day, like, you know, let's say early 90s, 80s, 70s, and so on, when they were still being taught how to knit, sew, you had a lot of art in schools and all that stuff, art programs. You would have the culture being shaped and molded by the actual youth audience. It was actually by the young, for the young. You know what I'm saying? Let me see, what is that? By the young, for the young, right? You know what I'm saying? I can't abbreviate that any further. But it was by the young, for the young. That's how a lot of that stuff worked. So it wouldn't be surprising to hear that, yo, the hottest fashion trend is by a dude up in high school, you know what I'm saying? Or by some girl up in high school that all the teenagers want to wear in that town or that community. You know what I'm saying? But a lot of these corporations saw that as a threat, so they stripped that out of the education curriculum so they can basically have a monopoly on creativity that reaches the market. You know what I'm saying? Creativity that reaches the market. You know, that's what they did. That's why you go to schools and you're like, there's no music. When I went in 6th grade, there was a music teacher. 2nd grade, I was playing the flute and all that stuff, you know? Nowadays, they removed all of that because a lot of these corporations, record labels, film companies. They removed all that because they saw that as a threat. How can adults 30 plus years old, decide the fashion sense of teenagers and younger if those teenagers and younger are launching fashion and launching their own entertainment? So what's happening with AI, and why I stress that, you should ASAP, you know what I'm saying, as young as possible. Of course, have some supervision if, on your kids, your nephew and all of them, whatever, you know what I'm saying, have some supervision to make sure they're not using AI in the wrong way or something like that. But you want to get those kids using AI as soon as possible, because AI will allow, for example, I don't want to get too technical, but right now with AI, if you sketch out things, you sketch out a clothing design, it will create that design. If you're sketching it, you don't even have to be great at drawing. Like you remember when we were little, man, we had ideas in our head. I still have it this way where, I don't, I don't draw, I don't illustrate, So I usually hire artists to draw for me. But I've got ideas, And, those artists usually sketch out my ideas, and it's something brand new they've never seen, But the thing is this. With AI now, a child in high school or younger could launch an entire, and connect it to a e-commerce website, could launch an entire clothing line, could launch an entire record label if they want to, with the technology available to us right now. I mean, there's a tool called Suno AI. For example, I use eMaster. I might be switching to Suno, it depends, but I use eMaster to master my records. The problem with eMaster is that it doesn't master the records to where it cleans up the sound, and it doesn't clean up a lot of the, certain audio imperfections, So I'm gonna give Suno AI, maybe I might give it a try, but Suno's price is a little out the moon, you know what I mean? I think it's like $300 or something a year for you to have the studio, which should have just came with it, the pro plan anyway. It's stupid, but with AI is undoing. This is why all these major corporations want you to fear it. AI is undoing a lot of the issues that the major corporations, record labels, film industry, clothing lines and all that, all the creative aspects have removed from public schools. You know what I'm saying? So you want to teach your kid how to use AI ASAP, as soon as possible. You know what I'm saying? You want to teach them how to find information, how to have something help them illustrate, help them create as soon as possible. You know what I'm saying? So they can basically, create something they're inspired by without the limitations of the school, where the school doesn't have a recording studio. The school doesn't allow them to play flutes and instruments. You get what I'm saying? But now with AI and all these tools, you could do anything, You could do a lot of things that they've removed out of the school curriculum. Like me, man, years ago, I was thinking about working on an album that was just whistling. You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? A whole album on just whistling. You know what I mean? At first, with a Mac, I would have to mix and master it, all that. But now with AI, it could handle that. Like eMaster could handle that for you and all these tools. So I think what's going to happen a lot more men, a lot of more boys becoming men will fail forward, like at a far more interesting rate. Because now another issue with high school is they won't teach you anything beyond the curriculum. You know what I'm saying? So let's say a guy's like, you know what, man, I'm just gonna get this C plus. You know, I go to high school, get this C plus, I don't care, man. You know what I'm saying? I'm gonna learn higher math, more advanced stuff on my own. Now you could do that. You could do that with AI. You know what I'm saying? With AI at a kid's disposal, they could do that. They could basically learn more. They can do things outside of the curriculum. You know what I'm saying? You could learn a lot more and achieve a lot more. And what I think's gonna happen, you're gonna start seeing it with Gen Alpha. And, you know, you're gonna really start seeing it with Gen Alpha. So I think all the Zoomers are out of high school by now. I'm not sure. You could do some research on that. But I think with Gen Alpha to Gen Beta, you're gonna see a lot more geniuses. You're gonna see a lot more successful. I launched my own website. I launched my own clothing line. I launched this, my own studio, my own film studio and all that. Like you used to see in the 90s, I launched my own band, you know, 80s, and you're gonna see a lot more because now, think about it, if you're a garage band, let's say some kids are in a band, right? Back in the day, if you were in a garage band, you know, if you didn't have the filming tools or technology, how could you record a proper, you know, proper music video for your crew, your group? You know what I'm saying? How could you do that? Well, now with AI and all the technology that's happening, where you could literally generate realistic looking people and backgrounds and all that, a band right now could be more creative than ever before. You know what I'm saying? And even rappers and musicians can be more creative than ever before. You know what I'm saying? Because you could now collaborate with the dead if you wanted to. You know what I'm saying? If you wanted to collab with Mozart, give you Mozart, for example, or you wanted to collaborate with, you know, people who created rock, hip hop and all that, you could do it now. You could do it now if you wanted to. You know, you want a hook by Chuck Berry, you know what I'm saying? One of the founders of rock. You know, you could get a hook from Chuck Berry. You know what I'm saying? If you wanted to. I might, you know, if I pronounce the name wrong. If you want a song with, you know, what was it? I think he passed away, you know, Prince. You could make a song with Prince if you wanted to. You know what I'm saying? Creativity now with AI is without limit. You know what I'm saying? And no matter the age, it's without limit. So I think going into probably 2026 and beyond, most likely you know, we're going to start seeing a lot of things pop up. New clothing lines, new fashion, new waves by the young, for the young. And you're going to see a lot of corporations try to sign these kids out of high school to deals, but now you got AI. So if somebody gives you a contract now, you just feed it to the AI and say, hey man, is this fair? You know, is this a fair contract for my kid? And now the AI will read it and tell them, nah, it's in a good contract. It's in a good contract, Akeem, don't sign it. They're gonna make you do 5 albums for like nothing. You know what I'm saying? Now with AI, you have access to instant intelligence. You know what I'm saying? Instant intelligence. You know what I mean? Without knowing nothing. Damn, there was something I was supposed to do. Yeah. Without knowing nothing, you have access to it now. You know what I'm saying? You have access to instant intelligence without you being that smart either. You know? Without your parents being that smart either. You get what I'm saying? You got instant access now, bro. You know what I mean? So I think a lot more males, especially after Conan 19, taught a lot of fathers, millennials, Zoomers, or Gen Xers, whoever's a father and a parent, after Conan 19 kept us quarantined for for damn near 3+ years for no damn reason. And a lot of parents became all about putting their kids, promoting introversion, telling their kids, yo, stay away from this person, that person. You know what I'm saying? So what's going to happen because of that whole introversion, and some people are thinking of, Conan 19, the sequel, is coming out at any time. It could come out any time. So a lot of parents are pre-planning in a way for the next Conan 19 installment, So, but another thing that's happened, I've been saying this for a while, is that with the fact that you have an anti-male situation where, false accusations are being put on, and, you got boys in high school getting locked up if they touch a girl, tap her on the shoulder without her approval, and all that stuff. What's going to happen now is a lot more of the boys in high school will basically revert to something we had when we were growing up in the 90s, is that, bro, we're doing things, we're doing things our way, bro. The women don't need to be involved in us making music, bro. They don't need to be involved in us building or inventing some technology. So you're going to see a lot more men create that separation that was natural for us in the 90s, 80s, and early 2000s, where it was, the boys will be boys. They're doing their own thing. You know what I'm saying? They're making music, they're building, they're doing their own things, and they don't need female approval or anything like that involved. So you're gonna have that situation where a lot more boys will start separating themselves from the girls being involved in their activities. You know what I'm saying? You're gonna see a lot of that return, see a lot of that return like it used to be, and the boys will be doing their own thing. You know what I'm saying? Garage bands or building things, technology. That's another thing with AI, is that you could simulate things on a digital scale. So a lot more boys will be able to simulate technology or even build things without access to it. You know what I'm saying? With AI, and it's already there, where you can get parts you don't have any parts for in the real world and put them together and experiment. You know what I'm saying? So I think what's going to happen as more boys get access to AI while they're going to school, and I think from about most likely 6th grade to high school, a lot more boys will be like, man, I don't want to wait. You know what I'm saying? I don't want to wait to be 18 to start my business. I don't want to wait. I want to do this. I want to do that. I want to make a comedy show. Well, now with AI, as you've seen online, you could generate skits. You know what I'm saying? So I think a lot of the boys going to school with access to AI technology will basically be achieving more and will be failing forward, because you're going to look at it and say, well, I'm not going to advance, if I'm not going to be taking a GED, or taking anything to get the hell out of here, I'm stuck for the next 4 years in the education system. You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? I'm stuck for the next 4 years in high school, or 6 years from 8th grade to high school, or 8 years from 6th grade to high school. Man, I want to do something. So I'm going to use AI and the technology to create. And you're going to see a lot more of this, because a lot of the males are waking up, right? You don't, like I said, you don't get better jobs. The job doesn't reference your grades in school. You know what I'm saying? You don't apply to a job and they say, well, because you have a 3.0, you're going to start off with a raise. You know what I'm saying? You're going to start off with a bonus in pay because you averaged a 3.0 in school. You don't see that. You know what I'm saying? So, and then the other thing, I've said this on a previous stream, and now I remember, is that a lot more males going to school will be, man, a lot more will be full-time ghosting anyway. You're gonna see ghosting take place from even before high school. You know what I'm saying? Because a lot more men, just like the boys will realize that, yo, my grades in high school do not determine if I make more money at my job. A lot more boys in school, going to school, will be like, man, yeah, I'm going to high school with these people. What the hell I need to impress them for? What the hell I need to even think about them? They're not gonna affect my job. They're not gonna give me jobs or nothing. You know what I'm saying? Impressing these people in my high school won't give me a job. You know what I'm saying? What is their influence? What are their thoughts on me gonna do anyway? You know what I'm saying? It doesn't affect me on a business status, and it doesn't affect me, you know what I'm saying, to a higher extent when it comes to some money, you know? Making some money. So I think another major thing why a lot more younger boys will start ghosting, just as boys will be failing forward, is that a lot of the boys will understand that, bro, you know, we're in school together. You know, that's it. We're in school, bro. You don't do nothing. You're not gonna give me a job. You're not gonna give me any money, or you're not even gonna better my position in life, man. What the hell do I owe you anything for? Why do I even owe you my attention, my notions, or my thoughts at all? You know what I'm saying? You're gonna see a lot more boys become, you know what I'm saying, far more full-time ghosting. You're gonna see guys ghosting at the high school level, the middle school level, you know what I'm saying, elementary level, because a lot of them will start asking questions, and now you can ask questions to the AI. You know what I'm saying? Let's say, remember when we were in 6th grade, if you were to, let's say you had access to AI in 6th grade, you'd be like, man, you know, I don't know what I want to be in the future. I'm in school and somebody's picking on me, this and that. Like, what do I have to gain for listening to any of these guys in my class? You know what I'm saying? You're gonna see a lot of the boys say, they'll ask the AI and say, what do I have to gain? And the AI, remember, the AI has a higher level of, you know what I'm saying, can resource and research everything and talk to them like a college educated or whatever. It's gonna tell them, well, you know, you could be popular. You know what I'm saying? You might get popularity points, but popularity doesn't translate to you getting a job or, you know what I'm saying, making more money in the career world, unless that popularity has value, has money. So a lot more kids, a lot more boys in elementary school will start thinking on that level. You know what I'm saying? They'll start thinking on that level of, man, you know what I'm saying? Why do I care about you, Billy, you, Malik? You know what I'm saying? Why do I care about what you think or what you say is popular when, bro, it's not gonna do nothing to me, man. This doesn't change my employment, doesn't affect my future if I wanna be a scientist. What the fuck does, you know, what does me being popular do for me from an economical standpoint? You know what I'm saying? So it's gonna lead to a lot more boys than ever before ghosting. You know what I'm saying? It's gonna be a lot harder. It's gonna be normal. That's the thing with, I think, Gen Alpha to Gen Beta. You know what I'm saying? It's gonna be a generation where ghosting is just a part of their natural way of life. You know what I'm saying? Especially since, the laws haven't changed, even under Trump right now. You know what I'm saying? You're still being targeted as a boy. You know what I mean? False accusations can still get you chained up, you know, get you behind some bars, you know? And I'm not talking about them bars where we're talking, you know? Talking about them steel beams, you know? So what's happening is ghosting is now the normal option. You know what I'm saying? It ain't like us, you know, I'm a millennial It ain't like Gen Xers or older Zoomers where it was like, man, you'd run around, say fuck you or curse at somebody, whatever. And it is what it is. You'd have issues, you'd have beef, you'd pick on some other kids. It wasn't a hate crime. Now everything's a crime, you know. And, you know, the anti-male aspect is turned up to over 9,000. Oh, the hatred for men and males is over 9,000. You know what I'm saying? That's what it is. So what you're gonna see like never before is the generation of ghost. You know, generation of men that, you know, boys that ghosting is just a part of it. They go to class, they do their work, and like I said, they don't even care, you know? They don't really care about it, you know what I'm saying? You know, once you know that I get a C, I'm passing. Even if it's a C minus, I can graduate, you know what I'm saying? So you're gonna see guys where, you know, I used to do this when I went to school, you know, high school, where I'd be like, all right, I'm doing my classwork, right? I'm working on it. But a lot of it, I had to figure out some cheat codes. I had to figure out some tricks for the work I did in high school where I didn't really focus or care about it. You know what I'm saying? Like I'd be doing, remember that work, the definitions, where they'd give you like 50 words to do the definition, right? Remember that? I would just remember one word. You know what I'm saying? I would remember one word for each word they gave me, right? For each word they gave me, I'd remember one word and be like, all right, man, hypotenuse means this, because I remember that one word that's different that showed up in hypotenuse. So now, this is why you know what I'm saying? They ask and say, oh man, all these boys are reading at a lower level and all that, because dude, you can trick the goddamn system, bro. You know what I'm saying? You can average a 3.0 and know nothing. You know what I'm saying? Know nothing more than how to basically, you know what I'm saying, break the system. You know what I mean? You know, that you could do that. You know what I'm saying? You could average a 3.0 and not know a damn thing. Not know definitions, barely know how to read. You know what I'm saying? Because you've learned how to, I'm forgetting the word right now, you've learned how to manipulate the system. You know what I'm saying? I was doing that when I was in high school. I would study the definitions thing the very day of class. I'd be, I got some homework to do. Oh man, I gotta remember these definitions. Let me remember one word for each definition. You know what I mean? I didn't know what the hell those definitions were. You know what I'm saying? But because I know how to, you know what I'm saying, manipulate the education systems, the loopholes, there it is, the loopholes. Because I found the loopholes in the education system, I was getting all these high grades, and bro, I didn't even know the definitions of the words. You know what I'm saying? Be like, yeah, hypotenuse, yeah. Geriatric, yeah, geriatric, yeah. You know what I'm saying? I knew the loopholes in the education system, and I bypassed it. And another reason I almost forgot, can't believe I almost forgot this, is that another reason a lot more boys will be failing forward is that there's a lot of education we'll never use, right? There's a lot of education we went to school and we never use. You know what I'm saying? Because a lot of the stuff we're taught in school, because it's rigged to just keep you there, a lot of it is based on if you would pursue it as an individual career. For example, they'll teach you, high levels of math. What was that math? You know what I'm saying? Forget it. Forget the calculus. They'll teach you calculus. They'll teach you all these high levels of math. You know what I'm saying? Which should just be an introductory. That's all it is. And if you want to learn math in high school, then you should just have a mathematician. Because the thing is this, bro, when we went to high school, let's be honest, man. by about the first year of freshman class, bro. After freshman class, we didn't need to learn anything more. You know what I'm saying? Everything should have been about specializing. You know what I'm saying? We showed you everything in freshman year to introduce you. Do you want to specialize in math? We're going to go all the way to calculus and the highest level of math possible. You want to specialize in English? We're going to go to the highest level of English possible. You know what I'm saying? That's what should have happened, but they don't want to do that. If they did that, then you wouldn't be going to college, right? You know, so I think a lot more boys will be saying, like I said, with getting that C to graduate, a lot of boys are going to be, dude, what the fuck I need to know trigonometry for? Or do I need to know calculus for? I'm never going to be using this shit. I'm not going to be a mathematician or any of that. You know what I'm saying? So I'm just going to get that C minus. I'm going to get that C minus or that C plus and graduate and get the hell out of here. You know what I'm saying? Because I don't need, there's a lot of stuff you're teaching me. And remember, you got access to AI, you got access to YouTube, which, you know, during our time, we had, in high school, we had MySpace and certain things like that. But now with YouTube and all that stuff, all this video sharing and stuff like that, bro, where you could learn, look up tutorials, and especially with AI, you could be with AI, and let's say you're in high school now, you're like, what do I need? What will I be using from high school when I graduate? And the AI will tell you, well, you'll be using this. You won't be using calculus in your daily, day-to-day life. You know what I'm saying? So you're gonna even more fine-tune your approach and say, bro, I'm not gonna be doing none of this, man. Well, what the hell I need to learn it for? You know what I mean? So you're gonna see a lot of that happen, a lot of that take place, where a lot more the high school guys, the boys going to high school will be, bro, I don't need to learn this, man. You know what I'm saying? All I need is a C plus or a D. Long as I can get enough credits to graduate, I'm good. You know what I mean? Long as my score and my grades are high enough to graduate, I'm good. The rest, I got AI, I got this technology. That's what I'll be focusing on. You know, I want to, before I even graduate high school, I want to launch my own website. Well, I go to the AI and bam, launch my own website. You know what I'm saying? So that's what's going to happen. Guys, boys will be failing forward. You know what I'm saying? And, the media is going to say, well, the young men are doing less in school. They're failing. You know what I'm saying? They're getting less grades, even though men still make more money. You know what I'm saying? Men still make more money, dog. But the media, well, the boys are failing. They're falling backwards and they're failing their education. You know what I'm saying? The media just wants to say that to promote because they know they got the women. They have to keep promoting that a man is failing by realizing the loopholes and being smart enough. Like, think about it, man. I figured out the loopholes of the education system when I was in high school and then have to study my damn test. I didn't study it all day, for definitions and all that. You know what I mean? And we all know a lot of schools, they just teach you the same shit over again that you already know, So I think a lot of the boys also use AI and technology and a lot better than video tutorials, because now with AI, if a boy says, yo, I want to fine tune this, you know what I'm saying? Give me at least a certain amount of chapters. I want to go from 6th grade math all the way to high school math within 2 months. You know what I'm saying? Or less. And the AI will create an entire curriculum for that boy. You know what I'm saying? Come on, man. And knowing what he knows. And another thing is, the boy will know that if I can make enough money from my websites and so on, I could get the hell out of school. I don't even need to graduate. I could get that GED. You know what I mean? So why even try that, you know? So I think a lot of the boys will fail forward because once you understand how the education system works, how the curriculums work and all that stuff, what you need to know, what you'll be using in your real life, you know what I'm saying? Once you realize that, man, you're gonna basically become a C to a D student. You know what I'm saying? You're gonna become a C to a D student because you're gonna be like, bro, I graduate anyway. You know what I'm saying? I graduate anyway with a D. I graduate anyway with a C. So what's the point? And then this doesn't affect me when I apply to jobs, you know? When I go to a job, they're not gonna give me a raise or give me more money because I have a 3.0, 4.0. They're not gonna do that. I'm just gonna be that busboy in a restaurant or whatever. You know what I'm saying? Then in high school, they don't even teach me about management or anything, so I can be even more invested in the school for something I could be learning to better my career, you know? So I think a lot more boys, man, will be, like I said, failing forward. You know what I'm saying? That's really what's been going on. That's really what's been going on when they say, oh, man, the boys are failing. Dude, yeah, but they're still making more money than you know what I'm saying? There are far more women than men, and the men are making more money. You know what I'm saying? Or the men are making enough money for what they need, especially since, you know, it's known that, yeah, men live a lot less frivolous, you know, live a lot less spending money anyway. A man could have a small room, a TV, and you could see that through streamers, you know, when they start, is that they just got a basic ass room, maybe some action figures, a bed, and that's it, you know, and they're streaming or whatever. That's it, bro. You know what I mean? There's more I could go towards on an economic scale, you know, economically how this will affect a lot of boys anyway. As you know, a issue that will come is that you're gonna see, like I said, with ghosting being a regular thing in high school, is you're gonna see it become normalized. I've been saying this for quite some time. I was one of the first to say that, man, simping in the eyes of boys will be you're in a relationship. Guys will consider you a failure if you're even in a relationship. You know, so what happens when in high school a guy has been ghosting his whole time in high school? You know what I'm saying? I think he's gonna be in relationships and all that. And another thing that's gonna come is domestic destruction, you know? That's gonna be engraved in a lot of the young boys going to school, that they're gonna, especially with AI and the technology to look at the whole world, they're gonna be, I'm just in a domestic place where my destruction can happen domestically. You know what I'm saying? So that's gonna take effect on the pursuit domestically, where a lot more boys will just see this place as I gotta get my jobs here. That's it, I get my money here domestically, get my hustle on, you know? If I want to experience anything else outside of getting money and working, I gotta go overseas, you know what I'm saying? But yeah, man, I had to make this video, bro. I had to, because this is the truth, you know? You know what I'm saying? A lot more boys will be failing forward, you know? The boys will be failing forward, and you're gonna see a lot more. I think with Gen Alpha and, you know, Gen Beta, which are a lot lesser generation, you know, there's far less alphas being born than Zoomers, and far less betas being born than alphas. So you're gonna see that, and then it's gonna only increase. You know what I'm saying? We know the narrative that's being pushed that by 2030, and they don't include the high school math, but by 2030, a lot of the dudes in high school aren't dating either. You know what I'm saying? So that rate of single women, the men will be single by over 80%. The women, you know, a woman could get with a man, you know, so the women will most likely be single by over 60%, while the men will be single by over 80%, or not dating or in relationships at all, you know. as this country starts being looked at as just basically a labor camp. You know what I'm saying? That's what you're gonna see the country be looked at as a labor camp. You know what I'm saying? This is where you go to work and that's it. It's a labor camp. That's it, bro. Labor camp. That's it, man. That's what a lot of the boys going to school will start looking as ghosting becomes, you're gonna start seeing it. Mark my words, if you make it to this far, you're gonna start seeing, and somebody gave me the heads up on this. Somebody I know that, some family, some people I know that told me about their issues in high school where they told me, the boys in high school, they can't even get the date, they can't even get the prom and the dancing going. You're gonna see, mark my words, you're gonna see a major news report that, boys aren't going to prom anymore. They're not showing up for prom. The boys aren't going to prom. You're gonna see that. You're gonna see this happen, especially with the fact that marriage and interaction between boys and girls is now a level of measuring risk. You're gonna see the boys not go to the proms. You know what I'm saying? The boys aren't going to the proms anymore. They're not going to the dance. They're not going to the high school rally and all that stuff, homecoming. You're gonna see this happen, man. This is what's coming. And you're gonna see it in the news station where they start reporting, oh my God, the boys in school aren't going to dance. They're not asking girls out. They're not doing nothing. They just stick to themselves. That's all the boys in school are doing. They're just sticking to themselves. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, you know what I'm saying? Everybody, man, this has been Hold the Truth Hostage, where the truth was so important. We wouldn't negotiate with lies. We would hold the truth hostage. Full-time ghosting isn't an option. It's the only choice. Full-time ghost. And we're living in a time of no secrets and no lies. Everything is in front of you. Anyone telling you there are any secrets is a liar. You know what I'm saying? And, like I said, man, this is the future, bro. This is the future. And like I said, boys will be failing forward. It will become a national news thing where you're gonna see them talk about boys failing forward. You know what I'm saying? Repeat it, boys failing forward. All right, peace.